ambition does not halt after motherhood. If anything, it's a recalibration.
Yeah.
Right? And so we believe that it's not just motion, but it's actually momentum.
And I think having it all, for me, it's not what it's all about. It's about what does ambition and success mean for you in the season you're currently in. So I believe, can you have it all? 100%, but not the same all at all seasons, I would say. And I was wondering this week, like, would anyone lash out this hard on a man doing that? Because for men, ambition is something more inherent and it's celebrated. And for her, somehow, this ambition became something that backlashed on her whole career. I put it backwards and I thought about, what if we would do a museum of the future for motherhood and ambition? What are the things that we would like to see there? What are solutions that we would think about? And they don't exist yet, but that we, at least we have a mind or a picture that we can work towards.
Welcome to the She Invest Show. This is where we have conversations about wealth, energetics, money mindset, and how to generate wealth with confidence and ease. Every episode brings you grounded conversations with people who are living this reality. Let's dive in. Welcome to this episode of She Invest Show. I'm here talking to two people whose journeys I've followed through being in the same community, which has been Crunch Moms. Here I have with me Constanze and Anushka. Welcome. I am so happy to have you guys on the show. And like I was saying off record as well, my aim is simply going to be to have a meaningful, real conversation with two women doing it all, as I think a lot of us are, or trying to, on the journey to make it wherever we want to be. Because you all are multi-talented, multi-hyphenated, I request you to please introduce yourselves and tell us what you're doing, maybe currently as well, because you've had some changes in the past. So Anushka, do you want to go first?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having us. My name's Anushka Kalyanpur de Luca. I am the founder of Nannies and More. We started off as a childcare solution, but have now grown into an umbrella for early parenthood support. My background is in public health in crisis settings, and I am a mom of 3 children under the age of 4, including a twin mom. I am very passionate about motherhood and ambition. So that's how Constanze and I have been working together on research on motherhood and ambition in the UAE. And we have actually just launched our own podcast as well, which we are very excited to have you on soon. So that's called Momentum, the podcast for mothers with ambition.
Wow, I want to hear all about it. But let's hear from Constanze. What are you working on currently, Constanze?
That's a very good question. First of all, thanks for having us. We're super excited to be here, and it's always nice to be with the two of us. It kind of makes it a bit easier.
For sure.
So I have my background in 20 years of corporate. I've been in FMCG for the longest time. I've done what we would call the corporate ladder. I've been in different kind of countries and different kind of positions. And I think a few years back when we moved from Singapore to Dubai, my son was 3 months old, and I was able to kind of bring my career here and transferred it, the same job from Singapore to Dubai, but only for a year. And after a year of being remote, I stopped the contract and I was like, what am I going to do now? So I was thinking in my head, it was all exciting. I can start my own business. I'm going to freelance, all of these things. And I did. There were different things I tried, but I think the one thing I stuck with was Both End, which is what I founded, which is my platform for mothers with ambition. It's a newsletter I've written now for 2 years, nearly every week, which I'm quite proud of, but also something that kind of comes from the heart. It comes easy for me. And I am, like last year where I felt a bit stuck, Anushka and I kind of started the whole survey, and it made so much sense. You know, all of a sudden things just came together. And that's where I love this word, like that we are multifaceted, because it's not just one thing that I want to do. I want to do different things, and I want to see how I can have impact in different things. My son is 3.5 now. He goes to school. And I feel, and we're going to talk about this later, that now the season changes where I can do much more for myself and for the impact I want to have.
Yeah.
And that's basically where I'm at the moment, trying to figure out what will all fit in this multifaceted life.
Wow, love it. I'm not much for small talk, neither is the podcast, so we'll go deep right in, and I'm sure we'll cover so many nice kind of things coming up from just your introductions. I want to know a little bit about your research, actually, and also kind of introduce Momentum. I love the name, first of all. What is the research? Because I feel I have been a regular reader of the newsletter. I feel the way that you articulate some of these day-to-day, I don't want to say struggles, let's call them challenges, it's very academic, it's very logical, and sometimes I catch myself thinking the same way, as if, I was writing what was happening on that day. And I want to know what your research is. Please enlighten us.
I've never been called academic or thought through, but I love it. It's really
I find
interesting.
it very thought through, very you're saying it's coming from the heart, but I feel it's very, it could easily become a series of columns or something like that.
Yeah, it's like putting a framework to the
framework.
everyday both and struggles. I love it.
Yeah, it is kind of.
And solutions.
Yeah.
Oh, you're having all new ideas for me. Well, I think we did the research because exactly what you were saying, right? I'm writing it within my newsletter, and we had conversations about it. And we kind of felt like, yes, we all know this. Everyone you talk to, every mother you talk to says, yes, exactly, that's what I feel as well, but there is no data behind it.
Yeah.
And we all know in the world of today, data just makes it easier to explain, to talk about, to become relevant. And so we said, let's try to have data around it. And then we came up with the survey. And I think in the end, it became something even bigger than I would have imagined, because a lot of things happened simultaneously. So there was studies done in the US that kind of shared similar notes and similar challenges, the same numbers even sometimes, on that women are not losing ambition, whilst, for example, in the McKinsey study done last year, that was the big headline, women are losing ambition. And if you look at it deeper, no, they're not. It's just that there is not the systems in place. And we try to go a bit deeper into understanding what is it that we all struggle with.
Yeah.
And I think it gave us a framework, again, to understand better. It's about seasons. It's about the multifaceted things we're all now interested in. It's about the age of the child, but it's also about you personally as a mother. How do you want to live that mother and ambition in your life? And I think then we came to Neha Rouge, and Anushka always says this also lovely, so I'm going to leave it to her. But I think it all just came together, and it became something that we felt was something bigger we wanted to bring. And now with the Year of the Family in the UAE, it kind of even boosted it more.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we think of ambition, Neha Rouge and the book she wrote called The Power Pause really inspired us. She reminds us that according to the dictionary, ambition is being determined to be really good at something. It's not just climbing the corporate ladder. Maybe to some it is, but to others it might be being a really intentional parent. It might be, creating a business solution that solves the problems for other women. It might be getting really good at tennis, whatever it might be, right? I think we keep coming back to defining what you want and living life on your own terms. That's what it really is, right?
That's
about that
really
agency.
lovely. Yeah.
So that's kind of what has been guiding us. And, very often we talk about seasons and motherhood in motion. We're constantly upshifting, downshifting our focus professionally. There might be motion in terms of geography, like for many of us here in Dubai. There might be, motion in identity, evolution. But what we keep coming back to, which our research showed us, as Constanze said, ambition does not halt after motherhood. Mm-hmm. If anything, it's a recalibration. Yeah. Right? And so we believe that it's not just motion, but it's actually momentum. It's helping us gain momentum in being more true to ourselves, more true to our values. So that's kind of where this has come about.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. And it really goes towards the conversation, which I happen to hear a lot, I'm sure you do as well, as to whether we can really have it all. Yeah. I 100% believe that we can have it all, but a lot of people, especially around me, conventional wisdom seems to say something's got to give. Do you guys have a side or an opinion on this?
Well, it's what my newsletter is about.
Yeah. Yeah. Please read the newsletter, everyone. We'll drop
It's called
a link.
Both And. No, it's called Both And for a reason. And funny enough, maybe it's just an interesting story, but I changed my newsletter name a year ago or so. And once I've changed it, I was so happy. It came to me in the middle of the night. I was like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. It's both motherhood and ambition, and it comes together. And a few days after I changed it and I launched it, Anushka texts me and she's like, do you know there is someone else having the same name? And I mean, first I was a bit shocked, but then I was like, how interesting is it that the same topic is covered by the same name by a woman in the States who has 2 kids, I believe.
Right.
And I thought there is really something. That means for me that there is something. And I think having it all, for me, it's not what it's all about. It's about what does ambition and success mean for you in the season you're currently in.
Yeah.
And what we see in the data from the survey is that it's very different if your child is, for example, 0 to 12, or where basically you're just trying to manage, mostly with the first child, right? It all depends a bit on how many children you have.
Yeah.
And then if you go into the 1 to 3, that's more the power pause, like Nia Roach would call it, where you kind of recalibrate, you try to understand what do I actually want to do and what is important for me.
Yeah.
And then once your child is, and that's all like indicative, but that's what we see in the data, when between 4 and 7, it's more like the bold moves again. You try to be yourself again, to change, to even like you change across companies, across anything you can do. And we see that in that time, we have the peak entrepreneur or the peak for entrepreneurs. So there is 44% of founders in that stage for women, which is a lot.
Yeah.
So I believe, can you have it all? 100%, but not the same all at all seasons, I would say.
Yeah, very well put.
I'm going to jump in there.
Yeah,
so,
please.
I think it's important to remember that everyone's not the same, right?
Yes.
And we know motherhood, ambition, it's none of this is linear. Everyone has their own journey. I can probably talk a lot about the infrastructure, the role that childcare, your support system really makes to your ability to thriving. But I want to take a moment to just talk about how it really depends on the person and the support that you have. For Nannies and More, we had a community event on Tuesday where Neeta Bhushan, who also has her own podcast, The Brave Table, she was leading us in a nervous system regulation exercise. And she reminded us that, in ancient Indian tradition, it's actually the womb where children are created, obviously, is also your source of creativity. So she asked, how many people have actually had, business ideas or things they want to do even while they were pregnant or, soon after they give birth? And I'm one of those people. Yeah. I feel like, because I have the privilege and a lot of really wonderful support right now, I think I have been able to build and have really excellent ideas, which sometimes I know I'm like, maybe I need to calm down and not try to do so much. But I think it really depends on, your, like where you are in your story and what support systems you have.
For sure.
And, if I were living in the US right now, I probably wouldn't be able to do a lot of this. But I live a 10-minute walk from my parents, who are the most involved grandparents. Yeah. I run a nanny agency that has incredible nanny support. All of these different things. I think it really makes a difference.
Of course.
And I think there's so many people, especially in Dubai, where you have incredible founders who are raising young children, but also growing businesses. And that's also what Momentum is about. Women who are creating solutions that would help other women and families.
I love that.
And to live them, sorry, just to, because I wanted to add,
please.
If you see, Anushka has 3 kids under 4, right? If I look at my own journey, my son is now barely 4. I have no idea how she does it, because for me, I kind of needed to figure it all out. I was constantly tired in the beginning. Yeah. And for me, seeing what she's doing and seeing what I have done, and not as comparing in a bad way, but comparing in, it gives me so much energy to do more. And that's what I feel like is missing sometimes, that we are maybe as mothers a lot stuck at home in our own little thing.
Yeah.
And if you talk to other mothers and see what they're all able to do and how they're doing it, because everyone does it differently, right? There is a different approach to everything. Not everyone has their grandparents, not everyone has it in any agency, but there is ways to find your own circle. And I think that's just the inspiration that I believe is so important, that we all see the different approaches.
Very much so, which is what the show, the podcast is about for me as well. Since you touched upon support as well, and excuse me, this was something that I wanted to speak about. We take it for granted. I think we don't give it as much importance. But what I wanted to really speak about was, I find it bonkers that in 2026, we're still having this conversation about the load that, the unseen load that goes on the woman's head. Women are being asked these questions. You're collecting data on women that's not been collected before or is fairly new. In terms of ambition versus motherhood, why is it? I mean, are we not? We've all been part of maybe the second generation, I would say, which was taught to, or which has been well educated, towards the end of being ambitious, towards the end of like financial success. Let's call it, just to simplify things a little. Why is it still such a tug of war? Do you think it's genetically going to take some time for us to evolve, or are we still too new in this journey? I'd love to learn your perspectives on this.
Elaborate more. Are you saying?
What I mean is that even though, I find it crazy that there's a conversation constantly questioning whether we're ambitious or not. I think that should be put to rest, number one. And I want to know if you guys agree. Number two, I want to know if the tug of war or the question comes up because we're too new in this journey, because it's still quite new to have women in the workforce. So we're still questioning ourselves very broadly. Maybe in the last 50 years, this has probably been more predominant. So I'm wondering if that is the case, and it's going to take some time for our guilt hormones to kind of subside. I don't know.
Guilt hormones. I want a hormone therapy for that.
Yes. Oh my God, that would
be lovely.
New business idea.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Great question. I mean, I think from my perspective, actually, let's preface this. We've had a lot of conversation about doing more and all of this, and I think there should not be guilt. People who want to grow more, who want to learn more, who want to do more, I think, this is, I think, ambition and motherhood are equal power sources. Nice. They are not contradictory, right? They support each other, enable each other. I feel like there's constant learning for me from work that I bring home and home to the workspace. But I also want to remind us of, the fact that what we said in the beginning, ambition does not need to only mean professional success, right? It could be ambition to deliver a bunch of kittens, which is something I read this morning. But, each to their own, I guess, is the key thing. When it comes to, where are we in this journey? I think it's so interesting. I would love to hear your perspective, Constanze. I think in the US, there's a lot of discussion about, it was when the men went to war, that's when women's active participation in the workforce really started. Yeah. And, things changed in such a positive way where women were able to, utilize their energy and their drive and their skills. And then all of a sudden, men came back and it kind of went backwards. So I think for me, it's all about designing the world and designing structures and policies that enable both men and women to succeed, whether it's in the home, whether it's in the workspace. So when you talk about the load, of course, when it comes to the physical load, through Nannies and More, we're working on this through the childcare infrastructure with nannies, newborn specialists, night nurses, lactation consultants, etc. But I think the other big part that we often talk about is the invisible mental load, right? And Eve Rodsky, who is an economist in the US, did a lot of work around this. When she became a mother, she suddenly realized that like this partnership that she had, which used to be quite equal, all of a sudden became quite unequal when her husband was like, "You forgot the blueberries today?"
Yeah.
She's like, so she took...
You forgot them too.
Right, exactly. Anyway, I can talk about that for hours. But then she came up with the fair play method, where we actually write out all of the household tasks, physical, invisible, etc., emotional, and then looking at how we're dividing that in the household. And I think that's just one of many ways we need to start thinking about it. But I think coming back to it, I think it needs to be designing policies, structures in the home and in the workplace and in communities so that it really enables both women and men to thrive.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Do you have...
Yeah, it's like the biggest topic. But so ambition for me is a very interesting thing also, and maybe also to look at it from a positive perspective first. I heard this morning that, for example, we have the most female Olympics we ever had, with 47% of women participating in the Olympics, which we never had before. On the other hand, we also have this huge backlash on Lindsay Vonn, who started while being injured, had then even a bigger fall, and now everyone is lashing out on her, like, how could you do this? And I was wondering this week, like, would anyone lash out this hard on a man doing that? Because for men, ambition is something more inherent and it's celebrated. And for her, somehow, this ambition became something that backlashed on her whole career. And I'm like, I mean, look at her successes, right, in the past. So I think there is a whole systemic issue that we see. And I can talk at it from a bit of a German perspective because I've written my thesis about it. In German, there is a word that's called Rabenmutter. It's translated in raven mother. And I wrote about how this word impacted the German system and why we have so little German executives, women executives or leaders. Right. Because raven mother is actually a bad word. It's someone who goes to work and who leaves their children behind and basically doesn't care for them. So until today, if I say, like, my child goes to school until 3, and I mean, if I could, I would literally put him longer, right? Yeah. There's many friends in Germany that would say, why would you do that? Why would you even have children? Because there is a whole systemic problem in Germany, and it comes back, even like what you said, it comes back from the war. How there was this framework about kitchen, children, church, and this is what women were all responsible for. And up until today, it's still a challenge. Like, Germany is not as flexible, it's not as equal. There is even laws that make it very difficult for women to kind of go back because then in the end they're financially worse off than they were if they would not work. So there's a whole thing behind, and I feel if the system doesn't change, then women can't change the system by themselves. And that's what we're also trying to do. I wrote an article this week in my newsletter about that I went to the Museum of the Future last week. And for me, what I loved about the Museum of the Future is that it doesn't say, this is it, welcome to your future. But it says, imagine the things we could do if we put our minds to it and what this could what effect this could have in the world. And then I was wondering, and I put it backwards, and I thought about, what if we would do a Museum of the Future for motherhood and ambition? What are the things that we would like to see there? And what are solutions that we would think about? And they don't exist yet, but that at least we have a mind or a picture, something in our mind that we can work towards. Like, I don't know, schools are 24 hours. I don't know, like, I'm just saying some random things. Because there are also people that work in the nights, right? Yeah. Like, or there is a daycare in every single office. Yeah. Or pickup is not always at 3. It can be at a different time, or everyone, like... Or you actually have a KPI that asks you, how do you integrate work and life? Like, all these kind of things. And I just think we need to be more creative. Coming back to what you said, maybe we just need to ask all pregnant women when they're pregnant on their creativity. But I think we need to be more creative to create systems that help women change the way we see ambition in motherhood today. Yeah, for sure. I feel like we're still at a nascent stage, and it's going to take some time, which is crazy because, like, our minds and our
growth has been so exponential in this half century, but I feel like systems are taking very long to catch up. Both of you have been in corporates before. Was there a turning point that got you to jump ship, let's say, or did it just happen organically?
So for me, I wasn't at a traditional corporate. I was at one of the most effective international NGOs. I really loved my job. I used to work on global reproductive health and gender in crisis settings. It is something I was really, really passionate about. And there were days where I would wake up and I would feel actually a sense of like just deep appreciation that I could, you know, in this small way contribute to solving these challenges that I really felt strongly for. But when I had my daughter, I realized that, you know, I can no longer be hopping on a flight every time there was a crisis or traveling across continents every 2 weeks. For me, it just became very clear that, you know, my child might have unpredictable needs, and I wanted to be around. So for me, it became about alignment. It did not make me less ambitious. It made me realize that I want a little more predictability in my life. And then very quickly after, I experienced, you know, all the different needs that new mothers face. And even though at the time I was in Washington, D.C., where I had many resources available, it felt very fragmented.
Yeah.
Soon after moving to Dubai to be closer to my parents and things like that, I experienced that fragmented care existed here too. And even though nannies were available aplenty, to find a qualified nanny who, you know, was up to my standards, who was well-trained, who believed in the same values that I believe in, that takes time and training. So that's when I decided to start Nannies and More on my own and solve a challenge that I know many of us face today.
Yeah. Lovely. I want to know a little more. Actually, let's get Constanze's version on this.
So I was in a corporate, like a traditional, what you can imagine corporate. But I think for me, what was a bit different, and that's where we always say every motherhood journey is so different, is that my mother feeling came a little bit later, I feel like. For me, it took me a while to kind of feel all of it. And in the beginning, I remember I was sitting at the tables at my mom's house. My son was 2 months old or so, or 3 months. And I was eager to go back. I called them. I was like, when can I come back? What's the project? What can I do? And I came back after 6 months. And I think that the turning point for me was probably the day I dropped him off at daycare.
Right.
When I left that daycare and I was like, I'm leaving my child with people I've met for 10 minutes. Yeah. Of course I get pictures and everything, but it was tougher than I thought. I mean, you get used to it, right? It's all like everything in motherhood, I feel, is like a muscle. Training, and it's a muscle to train. So that was one thing. And then I think there were just little bits and pieces. It was not like one big event, but little bits and pieces that made me aware that it's so hard to have that traditional 9-to-5 job. Yeah. If you want to be there for your pickups, if you want to be there for the night times, and if you don't want to have your nanny be the main contact person during the day, right? Yeah. And I mean, I want my career and I want to have an impact outside my home, but I also want my son to be happy and I want to be there for his happiness. Yes. And so what I did in the end, I had the flexibility and the luxury at the beginning in my job to be flexible to pick him up and then to work afterwards still a little bit again. But I believe if I wouldn't have had that, I would have quit a lot sooner, because I was in projects I didn't like. It was a whole thing where things just didn't work out the way I thought they would. Yeah. And I realized this is just not for me. And not saying it's never going to be for me. It's just that I think that season was the wrong time to be in corporate. And I still hope we can make adjustments also in corporate. Yeah. That mothers feel more welcomed.
Mm-hmm. For sure. This is the question I was jumping into, Anushka. This is more so for you. Because we hear so much about support, it's a big perk of being in Dubai. Did it ever occur to you? And I find this very interesting. A lot of like new entrepreneurs want to steer clear of industry spaces that are seen as being fairly competitive, or that they're bursting at their seams. You'd imagine that nannies would be a problem, or in general, childcare would be a problem that a place that has plenty of supply would have solved by now. Did that ever occur to you in terms of what am I getting into? What's going to be differentiating me? Is this a problem that's being solved already? I'm just curious to know.
Great question. So many thoughts. So, it's interesting. My husband is actually a very involved parent.
Right.
He is an emergency medicine physician, super detail oriented. When we were in the US, we had a night nurse who really helped us, and I think made me a more confident, empowered parent too. We had so many questions, but she equipped us with the information, but in a very kind of supportive way. Now, fast forward to my daughter being 8 months old, we'd made the decision to move to Dubai, and we came here and wanted to find support. We were extremely disappointed by what we saw.
Yeah.
And that's when it occurred to me, in a place where it's apparently so easy to have support, why is this taking so long?
Yeah.
I then tried one of the agencies who I know is one of the best, and I was very satisfied. I was blown away actually by their standards, but it was really unaffordable.
Right.
Okay, for anybody to have that for more than a week or a month or whatever is not possible.
Yeah.
So my goal was, how can we meet this in the middle?
Right.
How can we really have these high quality services at a level that's more affordable?
Yeah.
And it's not easy. It's not easy at all. I understand why that agency charges as much as they do, because after being in this field now for 2.5 years, I can tell you, visa costs, we cover transportation, we cover sick leave, we give flights home. If you want to treat your employees well, like it costs money. It's not cheap.
Yeah.
And then, we do onboarding training, we do ongoing skills development, all of which costs a lot of money. Then you have people wanting to leave to go work with a family.
Yeah.
Of course, you want to support them and their personal growth. So it's not an easy thing to do at all. But I believe we are doing our best, and also the model has evolved, especially with this season of motherhood that I started this in the early motherhood phase, where I wanted the newborn specialist, I wanted the nanny who had years of experience, who had some orientation to like sleep training, things like that. I'm beyond that phase now.
Yeah.
Now I know that after a certain point, you want somebody you can trust, who has similar values to you, etc. So now, in addition to having our main model of having nannies on our visas, where we, solve all the logistics around it, we now also offer a search and recruitment service.
Right.
So we take on that mental load for parents, where we can do the shortlisting, the interviews, the reference checks, etc. Which, as we know, mental load is such a big part of it, right? Yeah. So that's really my answer, that even though I knew there was competition, I think this in between of like really high quality, slightly more affordable.
Yes.
And also one that really leaned into the values that I believe Nannies and More stands for.
For sure.
Around community, empowerment. We have all these morning coffee sessions really to help moms feel that they are in community, that they're not isolated, which especially in a place like Dubai where so many people are moving without that, community is really critical.
To be fair, I think as an entrepreneur, personally believe that entering a competitive space and doing it really well is probably your best shot at success, instead of finding the next new thing, which is what a lot of like new entrepreneurs tend to spend or waste too much time on, in my personal opinion. But that's a separate conversation. We've touched upon seasons as we've spoken for the last few minutes. Can you elaborate on what your take is on seasons of motherhood? It seems like something that will be very relevant for most people to be able to relate to.
Yeah, so I think for me, the concept of seasons came to me from a friend. So she's kind of like a year ahead in the motherhood journey. And I studied with her at INSEAD, which was like a psychological coaching studying. And at some point, she invited me to her, I guess it was her 40th birthday, to Ibiza. And my son was, let me say, either 1.5 or half a year or something. I think 1.5. And I looked at her and I was like, I really want to come, but I can't. I don't know how to make this work. I don't know how to leave my son here. And then she said to me, she was like, you know what? Your season will come. It's going to be okay. And first of all, that understanding, right? That someone just gets it.
Yeah.
But the other thing was also, let me understand more about this season thing.
Yeah.
Because for me, it became a mantra. And every time I feel like this is annoying me, like even if it's my son not eating something, or if it's me not being able to go out at night because I need to get up at 5:30 in the morning, or all these things, I'm telling myself it's a season. And so with the study, or with the research that we did, I think there was one part of the seasonal approach that we saw. So the one that I mentioned about the age of the child, where really by age of the child, you can see that women did different things, that their ambition changed, that the way they were engaged in ambition changed as well.
Yeah.
But on top of that, I also realized that there is different seasons in how you feel and what your capacity is. So and I call it like the landscape is the one that your child is in.
Yeah.
And then you add to the landscape the capacity to it. And I developed like a quiz around it on understanding in which season, like capacity season you're in. And there's all different kinds of things, right? From experimenting to discovering, building, performing, everything. But I think it's not about per se the names of it. It's about if you understand better where you are in which season, it's easier for you to be nicer to yourself.
Yeah.
And not constantly stress about things that maybe in this season of life don't make sense to stress about.
Yeah.
Like we had a quick chat about this before, that I said currently with where I am in my season at the moment, I'm not stressing about many things financially, also because I'm very fortunate to have a husband that supports me a lot in that one. But I know the next season that's going to be where I'm going to be focusing a lot more on finances. When my son was very small, I was definitely not an experimenting season, because my whole life was an experiment of trying to raise a young child, right? So that was not the mental space I'm in. But maybe I was in a season of kind of understanding more, really taking in a lot. And from a personal perspective, I had, for example, the beginning of last year for me was like, I think one of the most difficult seasons I had.
Right.
And if I look back at it, I always say it was like a standstill. I felt like nothing happened.
Yeah.
And looking back at it, I think it was not that nothing happened. It was just that it was the season of like preparation and settling, because many things that are happening today happened because of that first half year.
Yeah.
And we don't see it sometimes that we are in that season. It might be very frustrating and it might be not what we're looking for. But I really believe if you know your season better, and you know yourself very well, also coming back to the values that you mentioned, this will help you understand you as a mother, you as an ambitious woman, you as a partner, you as a friend, and you don't put that high expectations anymore in yourself, or the right expectations, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I love that capacity and emotional season is also part of this, because that's so real, right? I mean, the child can be in one season, but if you've had a tough day at work, for that day, you may not have full capacity. And Anushka, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, also just lifting up what Constanze said, I think when people typically talk about seasons, they talk about the child.
Yeah.
But it is so important to think about the mother. So many people, might be in that sandwich generation where they're also thinking about their own parents. I know so many mom friends who have been, dealing with the grief of losing a parent while they're also parenting their young child. So I think it's really important that we think about all that. I often, I have moved around, even though Dubai has been my base again for the last 3 years. I've had quite a lot of back and forth with the US, given my husband's job, and I had twins in between who we delivered in the US related to my husband's job. Long story.
Yeah.
But the point is, I've had a lot of micro seasons.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, especially in Dubai, so many people leave for the summer.
Yeah.
Then it ends up being that you have to set up your whole system, your whole routine somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I've done that now for 2 summers in a row, including 2 summers ago when we were in the US for 5 months, where we had to develop completely new routines. Had a whole, since we had the twins who were in the NICU, I was thinking about the needs of my toddler. I was thinking about the needs of my twin boys, setting up support so that someone could be with my boys while I was also ensuring my toddler was feeling loved and supported.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that we also think about, the fact that each day can be different. Each period of each term can be different. It's really a changing sort of scenario. I know for me, in 1 week, I might have 2 or 3 days that are super work heavy, and the remaining 2 work days are a little more child focused.
Yeah.
So I think it's also about allowing yourself that permission to do what's right for you on that day, on that week, whatever that is. I think it's allowing that evolution, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I think one big learning for me, and I'd love to hear your perspectives on this, has been whatever's right for you is going to be right for your surroundings. Because when I went into motherhood, similar to everything that you guys are saying, so many micro seasons, so much to deal with, big identity shift from leaving a toxic job and then letting go of the paycheck that comes with it, which was at the very base of my confidence, I realized later. And what I realized was I was so fixated on the amount of time I was spending with my son that everything was like my report card was a function of the time. The quality of the time was secondary, which should have actually been primary. But it was more the FaceTime, just being there. So I had to feed him all the meals. I had to do all the bedtimes. Surely, I was very frustrated for many of these kind of forced activities that only I had to do, which I let go of with my younger one. But I still struggle with, being in the sandwich generation. I had to leave my elder one here for about 10 days while I was in Delhi to be with my parents with some health problems and just kind of being there with my younger one. So it's a constant kind of juggling act, but if it's right for me, it's going to be right for everyone else.
Correct.
I feel like so many kids have been brought up with so many different permutation and combinations of time versus attention versus having none of it. And they turn out to be, they kind of find their own path. There's no real correlation. Is that something that comes up in the data as well? Or have you seen the data on the flip side from like the child's and the child's perspective of what happened to them? Or are we too hard on ourselves is the question, is the basic question.
Yeah, it's really funny because I had a conversation about this exact thing with my coach yesterday.
Right.
I mean, my coach is N70. He's a psychologist by background and he has kids and everything. So he has seen the world, right? He has seen a lot of things. And he challenged me on it and he was like, because I'm the same. I'm still in your phase of I need to do all bedtimes. I need to do all meals. I'm like, I need to be there and it's all about the time spent.
Yeah.
But what happened is my mom was here for 2.5 weeks and my mom and my son are super close. So I was like, great, she's going to bring him to bed. Not a single time was he happy that she brings him to bed. And I was like, okay, something needs to change. And I think what he told me, because I told him I need a mantra. I need something to kind of repeat in my mind that it's okay to let go. And he said, you're only one of many, 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 many people that will influence your son.
Yes.
You're only one of them. I mean, there is the teachers, there's the classmates. And he said, and the older they get, there is the friends, there is the surroundings. So believe me, you will not do anything wrong with your child if you're not there for every bedtime, if you're not there for every dinner. And it's still hard, also because, and that's what we do see in the data, we maybe are not yet at the right stage of our childcare. My husband travels a lot, so it's always on the nanny, which we're still kind of getting used to. And in the data, we see this, that we see, I think it's like 85% of women with great childcare say they're ambitious and they have a purpose and everything, whereas only 55% of women that have not great childcare say the same. So it's all about, if your child is taken care of by whoever that you trust, that could be anything, however your setup is, then you are able to be yourself and you're able to also be satisfied with your life. Because I'm exactly at the same stage. I'm frustrated as hell to every bedtime, to, like, I also want to go out. I don't want to get up every morning at 5:30. And in the end, it's only me that can change it.
Yeah.
And that's this huge shift change, I think, that you can only have if you talk with other mothers, if you know yourself well enough and you recalibrate yourself by season, by day, by age of the child.
Yeah, very much so. And Anushka, I've known you to, and possibly yourself as well, Constanze, to be very kind of systematic about, I remember having a short conversation a while ago about your work schedule. You were working from a cafe and then you'd go back for a nap, come back to the
Reform
cafe.
social.
My cover's been blown.
Not promoted in any way, but is there like guilt? Does this time conversation, maybe you look at it in a very different way and we want to know how you look at it.
Well, okay. So first I would want to add something to your first question. Yeah. The parent involvement. I think there was a Harvard study that showed that there is no correlation between the parents that work and the children's happiness. I'll get the exact stat for you.
Yeah.
But for those of us who are feeling bad about leaving our children, I don't think we need to worry too much about that. I think, like you said, it's about quality over quantity, right? It's about presence, and that's so tied to your other question. It's about having systems in place.
Yeah.
I think very often we feel like we are falling short as individuals when we're not doing enough with our children or not doing enough at work or whatever it might be. But I think it always should go back to the system, and the system needs to evolve to really keep up with ensuring that everyone's supported.
100%.
Right? So for me, my system, and I'm very grateful, I'm so grateful for this current system that I have, but, to me, it's really about the infrastructure, both at home and at work. At home, I have incredible nanny support who I fully trust, and my parents. My parents are the main reason I moved back to Dubai. Feeling emotional saying this, but like I am so grateful for my parents.
Yeah.
They travel a lot, but when they are in town, they often will do drop-offs and pickups and, as much as they can. So much so that I learned recently that my daughter's classmate's mom thought my dad is my husband. So yeah, that's pretty funny. So, that's my infrastructure at home. Of course, my husband is as involved as he can be, but really that's my infrastructure at home. At work, I have an incredible team who has grown with me, who's grown with the company. I have, 3 people who I can close my eyes and I know that the operations, the marketing, the partnerships, anything we have discussed, it will be moving. Of course, I'm very involved, but I fully trust them. And I think that is such a big part of all of it, trust for the home and work infrastructure. So, yeah, I think that's kind of where this comes from. I think the scheduling sometimes is really tricky because I have 3 children.
Yes.
Sickness almost always throws everything up in the air. But, I think as long as we build in some flexibility into that overall system, I think it works.
Lovely. Since I deal with money a lot, and I feel like money is just one aspect that Yes, a lot of our day-to-day work involves an exchange of money, but I feel like it's not the most important thing in the world. That's my personal opinion. It's one of the four aspects in life, from being a part of health, relationships, career, and then money for me. Do you feel like money is a big motivator for both of you? Is financial security quite high up there in terms of how you run your business, how you run what the decisions that you make, basically?
Yes and no, probably both and. But I mean, I can say yes and no because I'm not relying on my own income only, right? I'm in a very privileged position to have a husband that covers the base of everything we do, which makes me be more flexible in the things I decide and also be more clear and focused on what I decide to do, and whether that's for money reasons or for others. And also here, I think the last 3 years was not so much focused on money, because there were I was a young parent, I was trying to make it all work, I was moving to Dubai, I was trying to settle here. And now I'm getting in a season where I feel like it's becoming a bigger topic, but still I've interviewed for a job this week, for example, and they looked at me in the interview and they said, because they were very clear on what the salary expectations are, and it's less than half than what I earned before.
Right.
And they looked at me and they were like, why would you interview for this job? Like, how do we know that you're not leaving in a few weeks when there is a better offer? And I was like, because I'm not optimizing for money in a job at the moment. I'm optimizing for flexibility and impact.
Yeah.
And the job would give me a lot of flexibility. It would give me the possibility to be there for sports days, to be able to travel to Germany and work from there, to maybe even pick up my son most of the times. And that's more worth to me because I have the financial freedom in the background than it is earning the big paycheck as a director in a corporate.
Sure.
But that's, like I said, it's very... And I think it's very personal. Would I like to have more money? Of course. Like, would I not like to discuss with my husband every little thing that I need to buy or my son needs? But I think this will come again.
Yes.
And I believe now I can kind of equip myself through people like you to understand what I can do with my money in the future.
For sure.
And then put a bigger focus on it.
For sure. For sure. No, I want to know your perspective. So is money or... What's your perspective with this, Anushka?
Look, very similar to Constanze. I think, purpose, flexibility, all of these things are most important for me. But I will say that since becoming a parent, especially to 3 children, which was never part of our plan, I have started to think about money much more than I ever have. I made a conscious decision to go into public health, to go into global health, because it was mission driven and supporting people. And I still stand by that wholeheartedly. But I feel like after becoming a parent and, wanting to ensure that my kids have what they need, I think it has made me think a lot more practically. Which is probably the wake-up call we all need as an adult sometimes. But at the end of the day, I think, even if it takes longer, doing it in a way that is more aligned with my values and my purpose is where I have landed.
Lovely.
So, yeah.
To end the episode, I always ask one question. And for you guys, I see you all, both of you being very systems-driven, framework thinkers, at least in how I hear your thoughts. I always ask, what is it that you'd want she to invest in? Like a person out there, a woman out there watching us, what should she invest in? In terms of systems as well, what's the one thing you would say she should be investing in?
In yourself.
That's what I was going to say.
It's the general consensus,
Really?
I feel. Yeah, 100%.
And I also feel, and to do a caveat to that, because for example, me personally, I love learning. I love to invest in everything learning around me. I just could learn all day long. I could go to university all the time. But I think it's also maybe sometimes a bit of an imposter syndrome. Now I've learned it, but am I really going to apply it? I'm not sure I had enough stamps and, like diplomas in order to do it. So I think, yes, it's investing in you, but also maybe daring more and daring to put yourself out more to actually have that impact that you want to have, even though you might not feel ready 100%. 70% is also fine sometimes, and you might be surprised of what you could still do.
That's lovely.
And I would add to that also investing in your joy, right? So it might be something, going back to our conversation, it might be, outsourcing some of your mental or physical load to somebody else so that you can have that 1 or 2 hours a week to do the thing that fills your cup. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's going on that girls' trip, once a year that, fills your soul, whatever it might be. I think, ensuring that you are fulfilled, I think is super important for yourself as well as for everyone else around you.
I love that. Is there anything that you'd like to tell us as momentum is going to go on the floor, or would you like for that to be a surprise?
Surprise here.
So that's a great place to end the episode today. I loved having you both as guests, and I feel that we went over data, ambition, motherhood, systems, support, and the importance of it. A lot of topics to cover in an hour's time. Thank you very much for sharing your time, and best wishes, good luck for your future endeavors.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.